Hey, it's Pete. Welcome back to Question Christ. And tonight we're on the eve of the 2010 elections. And unless you've been vacationing on Mars or something, you have not been able to avoid, I'm sure, the craziness of this election season. What I want to do tonight is not throw fuel on the bonfire that is American politics that's raging well on its own. What I want us to do is step back and look a little bit biblically, just very broad stroke biblically, and put some perspective on electing leaders, especially in this craziness that's going on in this election season. Like many things in our lives, Christians sometimes have a hard time giving things to God and trusting God in things. And one of those things, I think, is picking leaders. We feel that I think we get wrapped up into what the talking heads say, and they, unless we vote for the right person or we vote out the wrong person, that we're going to screw up history. Now, we have to remember, God is sovereign, and He is going to use whatever we do and turn it around for His glory. If you remember in Paul talks about this in Romans chapter 8. God's going to take all things and use it for good, even the most biggest messes we can make in our political process. So while I say that, I'm not saying that Christians should not be a part of the process. I think that you should be a voter, you should be an informed voter, you should know who you're voting for and why you're voting for them. But what I'm saying is that if for some reason someone else is elected that we did not pick, that you did not pick, God is going to still use that somehow. God raises leaders in different generations, sometimes using leaders that aren't Christian for His purposes. You remember what happened with the king of Babylon coming in and being used as a tool of judgment and bringing the nation of Israel into captivity and exile. God can use leaders that might not be Christian for His purposes. A lot of times we get the leaders we ask for because of our own prideful hearts, but sometimes God will use that and use that for His purposes. So we shouldn't get too crazy about, wow, if this person that we wanted didn't get elected. Doesn't mean God's salvation plan is thwarted. When this movie runs out to the very final credits, God will still achieve everything He wants. So that's the first thing we have to remember. The second thing is no leader or law can change the broken human condition of our sinful nature. No one can do that. Sometimes we think if we just vote for the right senator or the right president, or we get the right law passed, or we get the right judge in office, that the terrible slide that our country is going towards, like whatever we think is evil, that it will be turned back. The only person who's going to turn back evil is God. And a lot of times, even if we got the president we wanted and the whole legislature we wanted, and we passed every law under the sun, that's not going to change the sinful nature of man. And so, we can't legislate morality. You hear that all the time. We can't legislate a change in the human condition. The only one who can change that is God. So you might say, well, Pete, if God's going to use everything for good, and that all leaders are not going to be able to change the decline that we're seeing and the evil that's happening in our world, then what's the point? Well, I believe that God uses us in our voting process to bring about good leaders, but the biggest thing we should be doing is praying. We should be praying for this country and praying for our leaders. And God says in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14, He says this, "And my people who are called by my name, if they humble themselves, pray and seek my face, and turn from their evil ways, then I will hear from heaven, forgive their sin, and heal their land." Now, God is not saying if every single person in the country prays. He says, if my people who are called by my name humble themselves, pray and seek my face, I will hear from them. So instead of huge protest, what I think we should do as Christians is to fill the churches and be on our faces before God and pray for this country. Pray for the leadership. Pray for divine wisdom for our leaders, and that they will seek God's face when they are leaders. That's what we should be doing, as well as voting and trying to do the best we can. But all the craziness and screaming and ranting and raving, that is not what God calls us for. That we're trying to do that in our own power if you're doing that, if you're trying to fix things on your own power. God is the ultimate fixer of things. So go to him and fall on our face. We should be praying corporately as a church for this country, much more than we should be protesting. So the election's over, say the election's over, and the people we wanted do not win. What are we supposed to do then? Well, we do everything legally we can to try to bring about change, but we are to submit to authority, and we are to pray for our leaders. It says in Titus chapter 3, verse 1, remind them, the Christians, to be submissive to rulers and authorities, to obey, to be ready for every good work, to slander no one, to avoid fighting, and to be kind, always showing gentleness to all people. Wouldn't that be great if after the election everyone would act that way? But we should be praying for our leaders, even those that we don't agree with. Ask God to change their heart and for them to see things the way God wants them to be seen. It says in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, first of all, then I urge that petitions, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgivings be made for everyone, for kings and all those who are in authority, so that we may lead a tranquil and quiet life in all godliness and dignity. So I would just say that rooting against somebody, hoping for their downfall if it's an elected official that you don't like, you're rooting against yourself. And God is clearly telling you to pray for these people so they can discern divine wisdom from him. So Christians should act that way. Christians should work hard to get the people they believe elected, but once it's over, they should be praying for their leaders. I'll just be very honest with you. I did not vote for Barack Obama. I worked very hard to make sure Barack Obama did not get elected. But once he was elected, I pray for that man every day. I pray for his family, and I pray that he will seek God's wisdom. I know I'll get a ton of people screaming at me about that, but you should be praying for him too. He is your president, and until another president is elected. And you can do everything you can to try to get that other president elected in 2012, but you should be praying for your leaders. So anyway, I'd love to hear your questions and comments, and good luck to everybody on both sides. We'll see what happens. All right, and just be praying for our leaders, and conduct ourselves in the proper manner. Hope you have a good night.